So the man, he had gone out with Vinegar Gravy a couple times to like soda shops where they lived in, it's not Paducah, but it's like a rich enclave that's more, somewhere, it's in shouting distance of Paducah because that's one of your hubs, so to speak. But it also borrowed a hub from Indiana or Illinois or some other state. I don't even know which state it was. Missouri, possibly. I don't know. I'm a stupid dog. I never once looked at a map, so it doesn't even matter. But whatever. He had took her to a wonderful date. It was enchanting. He picked her up at her house. Lo and behold, she lives in a manor house. Our manor house is even more up to date. You can see that you could spend a lot of money on that manor house. It was always constantly getting improved. It was a work in progress, so to speak. According to her dad, Cold Sore Jimmy, the house that Vinegar Gravy still lived in, because it was like the man, she had a giant portion of the house. It was like a house within a house she got to live in. So Vinegar Gravy wasn't worrying about it. But when they walked up there was all these plants, and there was actually a servant or two. I mean, Vinegar Gravy's dad was doing it right. They had, I think they had a part-time or a rotational chef situation, a live-in maid like Alice on the Brady Bunch with their own servants' quarters, and they had a butler that they paid him pretty handsomely. He was old and decrepit, but in his day he was tough, and he could take care of a lot of business for them. But now they were kind of like pensioning him off, but they still paid him handsomely. And this man did well for himself, but he lived off-site. Well, the man, when he went over there for that date, there's a lot of other details we're not going to discuss right now. The plants, they mixed in some marijuana plants. There was some of the plants, like they make a big spiny, like flower that if you dry it out, you could smoke it. It's like, whatever you call those buttons off the cactus out west where they have like the psychedelic long streams of mucus coming out of their nose. It's a wonderful thing. The man always thought about that one, but he was blown away by the manor house because his manor house was little, not really lived in, a little musty, a little forlorn. Hers was vibrant, updated, constantly. There was constantly pipes getting dug through the lawn or construction. The man, Cold Sore Jimmy, constantly had crews working on his manor house because he was a fine, taunt, gorgeous, beautiful, and no expense. Well, the most weird thing to the man, because he was worrying, because he had heard about maybe Vinegar Gravy was a witch. And they based that on some really spurious discussions in a very previous post of Vinegar Gravy about how she might have done this, that, or the other thing. But nobody was really worrying about it. And to the man, it was he had a delicious rabbit stew situation going on for himself that he loved. And so that's why he thought she was a witch. But he's like, rabbit stew, and as hot as and beautiful as this woman is, no one's messing with this. No one's trying to get involved with discouraging such a gorgeous, beautiful situation. This girl's got it all. 41 years old, she's like 28. She's like a 28, 41-year-old. It's a beautiful thing. But the man was a little worried. Even though he had eaten that rabbit, they had great sex afterwards, so that kind of tempered his fears. Because she's so hot and beautiful, wonderful, and so perfect, he was like, oh my God, what am I, stupid? I can't think negatively, even though she had said some things or done some things that he was a little wary of. When he picked her up at the house, he was put to ease. No one was around. They had a big, giant, like massive pool, heated, but out in the open. Like they didn't care, just heat it, just whatever it takes, It doesn't matter. You could heat it in the dead, you could heat it if it's 1 degrees outside Celsius for that matter. So they weren't worrying about it. They had tennis courts, but everything was tight and new. It was like being in a resort that they just built. Everything was up to date. It was wonderful. They had a water fountain. They had a water fountain for water, and they had a water fountain for various different kind of drinks. It was like those Coca-Cola machines. You could push Coke, Cherry Coke, or Coke Light. This thing here, you could push margarita, bourbon, or Old Stafford Lager. It was a wonderful distributor. It didn't matter. But the funniest part of it was to the man when he first went to Vinegar Gravy's wonderful manor house that she lived in, her dad's beautiful manor house, was that when they got up to her chambers, they were massive. They were 2-story chambers with interior rooms galore and a secret passageway and a fireplace. Her chambers were, what you would say, modern wealthy. I mean, not old school, not run out of money, new school. This was modern wealthy. These people were, whatever. But she sat down at her vanity table that had been commissioned by a famous artist that was all cut glass and all this other weirdness that glistened. He thought it was like some kind of throne. She spun around in her swivel chair. She looked at him and said, "Could you light my cigarette?" And she kind of pulled her cleavage out a little bit more and breathed a little heavier. And she's like, "I wonder if I should just have my breasts show, my cleavage, or should I put a beautiful, super expensive, bejeweled, whatever you say, the thing that hangs at the end of a necklace, a big giant jewel, a big emerald." And he said, "I don't even know what you're talking about, but yes, I think I would leave the cleavage and go sparse, go just with the cleavage." And she laughed, and then she said, "Hey, let me introduce you real quick to my dog, Jaws." And the man said, "Your dog? You named your dog Jaws? Like Jaws the shark?" And she laughed again, a lilting, beautiful laugh, and then her fragrance wafted up into the air. And the man could smell. He's like, "Oh my God, this woman, she's like a witch. She's like enchanting me with her fragrance over here. What am I going to do about it?" She said, No. She, meaning the little dog, just likes to really chew and meow, and she could bite you, she could draw blood. She thinks it's funny if she could draw some blood off you, and everyone else thinks it's funny, and they kind of laugh. So be careful. At Christmas, if you're around during Christmas, you're going to be with some, whatever you would say, some made men, some, soldiers, and some good guys, some good fellows, and we're going to be standing around the Christmas tree drinking eggnog. This dog's going to bite your ankle. She's going to rip out one of your tendons, and there's going to be a lot of coursing blood across the floor, and everyone's going to laugh if you want to hang out with me. And the man was like, maybe I could win her over if I give her some tidbits, like I keep a milk bone in my pocket. I could break a piece of the milk bone off. And Vinegar Gravy says, "You're going to need more than a milk bone, you idiot. What, are you stupid? You better have some filet mignon that you had a chef prepare for this girl. You wrapped it up in tinfoil and tried to keep it warm next to your thigh. Maybe you should tuck it up on your scrotum and keep that steak warm. You pull a little cube of that steak for this girl. Maybe she won't bite you. But she's going to bite you. She's going to draw your blood. She's going to lick your blood. I mean, at the very least, if you give her cubes of steak, you might avoid tendon damage. But, whatever. It didn't matter." The funniest part of that episode was when the man, he was so intrigued by her. She was so lovely. She was so beautiful. And her manor house was so up to date, so structured and taut, so gorgeous. So you couldn't spend no more money. They had gardens. They had servants, for God's sake. These people were doing it the right way as far as living large goes. And Vinegar Gravy says, "Hey, okay, you've handled it all. I've really had a wonderful time. I'm going to laugh twice. In between the two laughs, I'm going to introduce you to my dog, Jaws. It's hilarious. She will bite your ass and she will draw blood. But if you make good friendship with her, she won't try to rip out your Achilles tendon or something like that. It would be disgusting. Get the bone in your ankle and literally pull it out like a mushroom. But it doesn't matter." The man thought that was another piece of evidence, and it was a subtle thing that a lot of people didn't pick up on. The man, for his part, he was standing there, as I said, a big smile on his face, and he was so happy to be there, and he thought he couldn't believe he was with Vinegar Gravy, and he's like, "This cannot really work out. Something's got to be wrong here." And she said, "I want to introduce you to my beautiful, gorgeous little dog, Jaws." And the man thought, Jaws, and it didn't sit well with him, and he was a little worried about the whole thing. But whatever, it doesn't, whatever.